All right, we're going to dive into a single number. But this isn't just any number. It's a figure that tells this wild story about corporate accountability, about a massive systemic failure, and about one of the biggest penalties in history. So let's get into it.
$1.3 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. It's a staggering amount of money for a corporate fine. So the first thing you have to ask is, how? I mean, how on earth does a single penalty get that big? What has to go so completely, catastrophically wrong?
Well, the answer really starts to take shape with this legal judgment from 2020. This case right here, this was the epicenter of that billion-dollar bombshell. It was a showdown between two giants that, you'll see, ended up setting a whole new precedent.
So, in one corner, you've got Westpac, which is one of the absolute biggest banks in Australia. And in the other corner, you have AUSTRAC, the government's financial intelligence agency, a real watchdog. So you've basically got the bank versus the regulator, whose entire job is to police this stuff.
Okay, so we know who the players are, and we know the outcome was, well, huge. So now we get to the heart of it. What exactly happened here? What did they do, or maybe what didn't they do, that led to such an historic clash? It all boils down to these things called anti-money laundering laws, or AML for short. The easiest way to think about them is like the immune system for the whole financial world. They're a defense mechanism designed to stop illegal money from being washed clean through legit banks. And the main rule is super simple. If a bank spots a transaction that looks a little sketchy, it has to monitor it and it has to report it, period.
And that right there was the core of the problem. This entire billion-dollar fine really just stems from one thing: a massive, massive failure to follow those exact rules. Westpac got hit so hard simply because they didn't comply with these super important regulations.
But, you know, failure is a pretty broad word. Was this just a few mistakes, a handful of things that slipped through the cracks? To really get why the penalty was so big, you first have to understand the sheer scale of this failure. Like, how bad was it really?
Get ready for the other jaw-dropping number in the story. 23 million. Yep, not thousand, million. It's a number that's kind of hard to even wrap your head around.
So this wasn't a few isolated slip-ups. No way. We're talking about over 23 million separate individual times the law was broken. Every single one of those breaches was a failure to monitor or report something suspicious. This wasn't just a series of mistakes. This was the systemic breakdown on a totally colossal scale.
The cause and effect here is just brutally simple when you lay it out. You start with 23 million breaches. Of course, that leads to some landmark legal action. And what's the inevitable result of that? A penalty that absolutely shattered every record that came before it.
And hey, that's not just us saying it. The court's judgment literally used that exact phrase. This wasn't just another big fine. It was, and it still is, the single largest corporate penalty in Australian history. A true landmark moment.
So let's just put all the pieces together really quick. Who was it? Westpac Bank. What was it? A mind-boggling $1.3 billion penalty. And why? Because of over 23 million breaches of anti-money laundering laws. It all came to a head in 2020, and it really did mark a huge moment for corporate accountability.
And all of this leaves us with one last really fascinating question to think about. A penalty this big is obviously historic, but what does it actually represent? Is it a sign that the system ultimately works, that the watchdogs can hold even the biggest players to account? Or is a fine this huge actually a sign of a catastrophic failure that should never have been allowed to get so out of control in the first place? It's something to chew on, for sure.